presumption. Those are the ones I was talking about with Agent Orange. So if you literally set foot on soil in Vietnam, you can be service connected by presumption, so you don't have to show anything happened other than you were on the ground in Vietnam for the presumptive claims. So those ones that I was talking about, the ischemic heart disease, prostate cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and all the different areas there. So the presumptions, it's such a high level that if you have it and you were there, they just say, we give up. All right. Service connected for secondary conditions. So, okay, we're going to go back. I've got a knee issue. My knee is really, really bad. Because my knee is bad, I kind of walk like this a lot. Because I can't walk normal. And over the course of the last 15 years, my knee condition has caused my left hip to wear abnormally. So my left hip now becomes service connected, secondary to my right knee. Okay? So it wasn't a direct issue. I didn't fall down and hurt my right knee and my left hip at the same time, but it's secondary to the other. Some of the secondary conditions that we more likely run into are diabetes and some of those sorts of things that are a result of some of the other conditions. You may have someone that ends up with renal issues due to their diabetes and whatever else they may have. So those are secondary conditions. And the last one is kind of an odd one. Don't see it a whole lot, and that's caused by the VA. So if you are receiving VA treatment and something happens to you in the VA hospital where you become injured or you have an issue there, that would be service connected due to caused by treatment in the VA. Next one. Okay. So there's 3 things that we need to show in order to service connect. And I'm not trying to make you veteran service officers, but I think it's important for you to be aware because as you have your own issues or someone maybe is telling you, well, hey, I got this problem, and you can kind of maybe have an idea what's going on. So you need to have a current diagnosis, all right? If I don't have a knee problem right now, but I show them a document that says I hurt my knee when I put my foot in that hole when I was running in basic training, it doesn't matter if you put your foot in the hole if it's not a problem now, right? Okay? So you have to have a current diagnosis. You need to have the in-service incident that caused the problem, and then you need to have the link or the nexus between the two. So, Vietnam veteran comes in and he says to me, Joe, I got an ankle problem. I can hardly walk. I think I need surgery. And I did this when we were on ruck march in Vietnam. Well, that's a long time ago, right? So we got to figure out how to show. Number one, we're going to look in their medical records and see whether or not they have an in-service incident. Did they document that incident in the medical records at the TMC or wherever they treated? Joel, the medic, looked at it and said, drink some water, rub some dirt in it, and drive on. And so that's what I did. I don't have that. All right? But I got a buddy that I still talk to, so we could maybe work with a buddy statement. But we need to have that in-service documented, because otherwise, how do they know that it happened then? Because the condition has to develop within 1 year of discharge. Okay? And then the link between the two. So you can have that it happened in service, and you can have that they got the issue now, but if it wasn't a problem for the 40 years in between, you don't have that connection. So you need those 3 things together in order to service connect. Does that make sense to everyone? Questions on that? It gets kind of sticky when you go back and you're trying to find things from 60 years ago. It can be kind of difficult. All right, next slide. So this is where we get into some that can be interesting or can be, it's the combat-related special compensation is a program whereby the VA will pay retirement and compensation without dipping into the retirement. So typically, if you are a retiree and you are receiving, so you come off of active duty, and you're a 20-year retiree and you get your retirement check, and you have a 30% service connection, so you get a few $100s a month. What happens with that is they will deduct, because service connection and compensation is tax-free, right? So they will deduct that amount from your retirement check, so that essentially what you do is you don't pay taxes on that 30%. Right? If you qualify under combat-related special compensation, you get both the retirement and the compensation without having to come out of the other at tax-free. So those conditions need to be met: eligibility to be entitled, receiving military retirement, must be rated at least 10% through the VA, waive your VA pay for your retired pay, all those sorts of things. The combat-related issue has to be armed conflict, hazardous duty, incident of war, or simulated warfare. So it falls into very specific criteria as to when you are eligible. The other thing to this is that you apply for this through the service branch. So this isn't applied for through the VA. You actually would go, you would go to the Army and you would say, hey Army, look at this. This happened to me as a result of combat, and I want you to pay me this as well as that. Okay, so it's up to the service branch. Next slide. The other program where that can happen is concurrent retirement disability pay. Okay, it allows you to receive both. Eligibility, again, you must be a regular retiree with the VA disability of 50% or higher. So you can kind of read through those criteria, but it's another avenue where you have the potential to receive both. This one, however, is an automatic. So you don't have to apply for CRDP. It's automatically done by the VA. Now, are there any questions about those two? They're very involved programs. And I don't know if you're going to get the slide deck or not.
Yes.
Okay, so if you've got the slide deck, it gives you a chance. The other thing is, and I've got some links at the end of it, if you Google search any of this stuff, you'll get to the VA site, and the VA site will tell you some stuff, and you're going to be running laps. It's going to be like, whoa, this doesn't tell me a whole lot of anything, because you may, I don't know if you know this, but you may be eligible for everything the VA has. But they don't really get clear about what you actually are eligible for. But it'll give you some links. Next slide. VA math. Who knows VA math? Who would like to brave the opportunity to explain VA math? This is not a high school course. It's not even offered in college. VA math is so complicated. No? Nobody? Okay. Well, let's go back to it. I'm going to explain it. It's kind of interesting. So if you are service connected and you've got a 40%, a 30%, a 20%, and 10%, what does that add up to? 100%, right? I took math, 40, 30, 20, and 10. It's 100%. Not in the VA. Can I borrow your piece of paper?
I got to release the Washington State Beach House. I just release just a
Am I running long? I'm almost done. Go ahead.
I still need the Warehouser candidates. If you could please stand up, grab your hydration system. We'll leave our bags here. Just storm up.
I forgot to mention, you just got to tell me when I got to get out of here. And I'll head back. Okay, so we're going to hit VA math quick and then I'll breeze through some of the others. Let's presume that this piece of paper is the whole you. You are 100% of a person. And the VA says you have a 40% service-connected issue. So I'm going to make my best effort to find 40%. So you are now, you have 40% that you lost. You are 40% less able to hold gainful employment. Now you become 30% less able because they gave you a 30 as well. They don't take the 30 from the whole you because there's only 60% of you left. So they take 30% from the 60% that was you. And that leaves you with, do the math, whatever you end up with. 30% of 60% will be what, about 20, 40? So about 40. So now you take 20% of the remaining 40, and you can see where I'm headed with this, right? So it takes a lot of nickel and dimes to get to 100%. But that's what the VA math is. So if you hear someone say, well, the VA is screwing me because I'm not getting what I should be, I got a 40, 30, 20, and a 10, I should be 100%, but I'm actually only 70. They do round up, so if you get above 65, they round up to 70. There's some other things involved, but VA math is one of those that I try to share because people get very confused by it. Okay, pension, we're going to run through quick. Pension is another means-based program. You have to be have 90 days of service with at least 1 day during a wartime period. Pension is not a gimme program that just throws money at people that don't need it. Pension level for a single veteran in Elbow Lake, Grant County area is $12,886. What that means is if you make less than $12,886, let's say you make $12,000. The VA is going to take $12,000 from $12,868. They're going to come up with $868. They're going to divide that by 12, and that's what they're going to give that individual each month. So they're basically saying no veteran that served during wartime should be living below the poverty level. So pension, unfortunately, we do have folks that qualify for that. We have some that get a fairly decent check for it. But that's kind of the idea behind pension. The other one, the HB, is housebound, so if they're unable to leave their home. And the last one is aid and attendance, so if they're deemed to need aid and attendance to take care of their daily needs, they have a higher level. Next one. Education, this is the easy one for me. Education is one of those areas that is as complicated and as involved as all this other stuff I've talked about. So I send you to the VA education folks at the college in your area. We just don't even really deal with it. It's just so much to it. The other area that they will send you to, because I just sent my son off to college this week, and I called up there and I said, hey, I transferred my post 9/11 GI Bill to my son. What do I got to do so that he actually gets money from that deal? And he said, well, go on to e-benefits and fill out blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I need that gig. I need the gig where I answer the phone and I send someone to a website to do it. But that's essentially, if you go on to e-benefits, which is a great website, you can find out more about that. If you are eligible to transfer your post 9/11 GI Bill, I strongly encourage that you do that. You will incur an additional 5-year contract that you must fulfill before you can actually make that transfer. But if you transfer 1 month to each individual in your family, you can change that later. So what I mean by that is you request that you want to transfer. Let's say you haven't used any of yours. And you say, I want to transfer my post 9/11 GI Bill, which is awesome, to my children and my spouse. You go in and you submit that form. They verify that you have 5 more years on your contract. They say, that's awesome, that's great. You transfer 1 month to each of them. Down the road, at any point, you can say, well, I like this one better now, I'm giving him another 10 months. Or I'm not really a fan of her anymore, so I'm taking hers away. She ain't listening. But you can make that adjustment at any point. You just have to transfer 1 month to each of them in order to open that possibility. So I gave my son 17 months. That's what I had remaining. He's headed off to NDSU right now, or to Moorhead State, just went up there this week. It will, for Moorhead State in our area, that's going to cover his tuition. It'll cover $1,000 for book stipend, and he gets about $1,200 a month for that 17 months. Over the course of his time, that 17 months is going to equate to about $42,000, which is awesome, because I don't have to pay it, he doesn't have to borrow. All right, next one. Optical dental. Optical and dental is a program under the State Soldiers Assistance Program operated by the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. Optical and dental is for veterans and families. Eligibility is that they must meet veteran status. Means-based, so asset limit is they cannot have more than $3,000 in a checking or savings account, and their income limit is as listed there. What it does is it helps individuals who don't have the means to do it themselves or to cover it themselves with optical and dental, including dentures and extractions, as you see there, and they're eligible to do the optical and dental routine care once a year. So they submit that application. And you'll see that a lot of this stuff is really, the income levels are low. It's not something they're just handing out to everybody. Next slide. Emergency assistance, two of the areas that we work. One of the big things that I deal with is I'll have someone that's been struggling. They're not making a whole lot of money. Maybe they're off work in the wintertime, you know, and they're just not able to make their electrical bill for that month. So we work to help them get through that. It's not that we're going to throw every month, we're going to give them $200 to cover their back bill and to cover their current bill so they can stay there, but we look at what have you been spending your money on, what do you need, what are your issues, can we help you along here, and State Soldier Assistance Program has a special needs grant that is a one-time, once-in-a-lifetime grant. If you are married to a service member, they recently changed it so that each of you can get a special needs grant. It used to be one in the household. And that can be used to cover things like furnace goes out, plumbing explodes, roof needs to be fixed, those sorts of things. That doesn't have the income-based side of it. So you can make more money. They look at it, but it's not a determining factor. However, if someone comes into my office and says, hey, I wanted to put a new roof on my house, here's my income, and they're making $250,000 in their household, the first thing I do is I throw out the means-based sheet for the rest of their program and say, you realize this is designed for individuals who make nothing. So I'm not saying that it's not available, and sometimes it's absolutely warranted and needed. If your furnace goes out and you don't have $5 grand in your pocket, yet you still make $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, hey, it's there for you. But it's the ones that come in and want to kind of use that because it doesn't have that limit. Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans. I'll throw a plug in for them. The great thing about this organization is that they have the ability to help people get through these issues without having all the red tape. So if you've got an issue where someone needs to have the propane tank filled because their house is going to be unlivable because it's January, and their income is a struggle and all those sorts of things, but they've got a plan to get through to the future, I go right to MACV, and they'll write that check within a day or so. They're a nonprofit organization, 501c3. If you have folks that say, hey, I got about 20 bucks in my pocket, I'd like to make a donation that's going to go direct to veterans, great organization to do that with, because they'll help folks get a leg up so that they can make and be successful. Next slide. Links. So there's a few links there. My Healthy Vet, e-benefits, Minnesota Association for County Veteran Service Officers. That is our website for our association in the state. So if you need to know where's my county veteran service officer, go to that site, there's a directory, and you can pull down any county. Each county has a veteran service officer. However, there's no restriction that you have to go to yours. So if you live in northern Hennepin County and there's a county veteran service officer somewhere that's closer to you than yours, you can go there. All right. So it's open in that way. You can find anyone in there and their assistants, Minnesota Association, Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans, and then the Bird Pit Registry. Next slide. Sorry I ran along with that, but I will open it to questions, and I will also be available on break. That was late. All right, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so they, just information, resources, so I've got a service officer for information. Yeah, put you on lunchtime, sort of going late, can you be back at 12:30? We've got Judd and Dennis.
That's how we roll. can ask for that one right in there. That's where I'm at. And they had no problem with that because well, I didn't ask, but they should.
The hotel's right in the middle of the road.
Yeah, so the building you go in is where the hotel room is.
I'm gonna grab an apple. 27 bucks. I'm gonna check in and grab an apple.
That Denver?
Huh?
That Denver?
Yeah.
There's some other stations.
And that was it.
Balancing both ways. In the phone call, get somebody to take care of it right now.
Same thing, you ignore it. Yeah, you bet.
Good.
So next time,
Yeah, they're not gonna pay over. Well, 50% of what your benefit would be is determined, the percentage of benefit is determined by the
I know, yeah, if I was not me, and then like, yeah, the things that he's gone through.
Because they're not gonna go above, I mean, that's like saying, well, I want to go hard, but they don't have $100. And that's where I say,
but no, it was
the education stuff. Oh, yeah. There's a reason they felt like state education.
It's huge. They had folks who were here. Yeah, with disability, it was, some dad was there, you know, the dude that does the SRT and the. You know, but it doesn't make. Nothing, how are you? Pretty good. Good.
you that first or two.
Are you that guy that's gonna help look me up?
Yeah, pretty good. You got a pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, I said, here's the chief, yes, I'm not sure where she